want to bring in Alex Traiman, who is the CEO of the Jerusalem Bureau Chief at JNS. And Alex, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I did want to start off with the fighting resuming between Israel and Hezbollah after that short-lived calm that we were speaking about. What can you share with us about the fighting resuming?
Well, I don't really think you can call it a calm. There's been almost 10 months of nonstop hostilities between Hezzbollah and Israel. On Sunday morning, Hezzbollah planned to barrage Israel with its largest attack to date in retaliation for the killing of Fuad Shukr, the #2 of Hezzbollah, several weeks back. They planned to launch hundreds of rockets at Israel. And as they brought their missiles and rockets out to the launchers, Israel proactively hit those launch sites ahead of time, using over 100 planes in the span of 1 hour, taking out over 1,000 targets. And the defense minister of Israel saying that Israel foiled between 50 and 60% of the intended attack. But as you mentioned, that wasn't the end of the story, and attacks have resumed today as well.
So for weeks now, really, Israel has been preparing for an attack from Iran. In your perspective, from your expertise, Hezzbollah, of course, one of Iran's proxies. Is this through, do you think, the directive of Iran that Hezzbollah is now launching such a barrage of rockets? Or do you think that this is independent of the anticipated attack by Iran?
No, I don't think anything here is independent. Hezzbollah is the forward army of the Iranian Islamic Republic. They are in continuous contact. Hezzbollah has said that this was in retaliation for the killing of the Hezzbollah commander Fuad Shukr, and Iran saying that they will respond directly for the killing of Hamas Bureau Chief Ismail Haniyeh when he was on a state visit to Tehran at the celebration of the inauguration of the new Iranian president, Pezeshkian.
So is there an end in sight? We have seen in just the last 48 hours, Hezzbollah launching an increased amount of rockets against Israel, who has defended itself. But is that what we can be expecting in the coming days, that Hezzbollah continues to ramp up its attacks against Israel?
Well, as far as Israel's concerned, they've been facing 10 months of continuous attacks, over 6,800 rockets, drones, anti-tank guided missiles fired at Israel. Israel has evacuated over 80,000 of its residents from a 5-kilometer radius near the Lebanese border. But Hezzbollah has been firing past that radius and basically terrorizing hundreds of thousands of Israeli citizens. And many people in the north of Israel believe that the government has failed in its responsibility to provide them with the basic security and safety that any government is required to provide its citizens. Israel wants to bring its residents back home. They want to restore quiet. The only way that they're going to do that at this point is going to be to continue to remove the threat of the rockets and long-range missiles of Hezzbollah. So I see that the hostilities are only going to increase in the coming weeks. I don't think we're coming to a ceasefire anytime soon.
And we've been talking about Iran and its proxies, Hezzbollah, Hamas, the Houthi rebels, all working in connection with Iran. Iran, of course, being behind a lot of these attacks. And I have to ask what the strategy is when it comes to Iran itself. Many people saying that Iran is on the precipice of obtaining nuclear capability, and that could be devastating, not just to Israel, but really to the international community. What are the next steps for Israel not to allow that to happen and not to allow this to escalate to that point?
Well, both Israel and Iran have separately been trying to transform the Middle East. Israel's been trying to transform the Middle East by signing normalization agreements with former enemies, with the Emirates, with Bahrain, going towards a normalization agreement with Saudi Arabia, which would, in a sense, effectively end the longstanding Arab-Israeli conflict. Iran is trying to transform the region and turn it into a terror den under its auspices, and it has destabilized countries including Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Yemen, as well as Gaza, essentially creating a ring of fire around the state of Israel and trying to actively prevent Israel from becoming a dominant regional force and from normalizing relations with Saudi Arabia. And as you mentioned, Iran has been illicitly developing nuclear weapons, according to all intelligence estimates. Iran is on the precipice of becoming a nuclear power. And if you see the amount of damage that Iran has caused to the Middle East without nuclear weapons, you can only imagine what they might do to the region if they had nuclear weapons, whether that was firing them directly like they have their ballistic and cruise missiles, or simply using those weapons as a nuclear umbrella to deter anyone else from attacking.
Right now, it's solely Israel who is fighting directly with, on many fronts, with Hezzbollah, with Hamas, with the Houthi rebels. From your perspective, where is it? What is the timeline, or what needs to happen in order for other allies to go further and not just supply funding and weaponry, but perhaps have boots on the ground to deter a further escalation of this regional war?
Well, I think that a lot of Israel's supposed allies have mistermed this conflict as being part of the extended Israeli-Palestinian conflict. But Israel's not fighting with the overwhelming majority of Palestinians living in Judea and Samaria, also known as the West Bank, not with the Arabs living in Jerusalem or in any of the mixed Israeli-Arab cities. Rather, Israel is fighting against the Palestinians living in Gaza because that's Hamas. And as you said, Hamas, Hezzbollah, the Houthis are all Iranian proxies. Once the international community begins to understand that all of the destabilization in the Middle East, not just in Israel, but in the entire region, has been caused by Iran, they should recognize that all the red lines have been crossed, all the efforts to try to bring Iran into the community of nations, all the efforts to fund Iran as it illicitly develops nuclear weapons, have all led to further belligerence, further malign activity. And ultimately, I think that the only way that this problem is going to get solved is with a strong military response.
When you take a look at the current landscape, the situation that Israel is in right now, what are you looking ahead to see what might happen, or what do you anticipate will happen?
Well, I would anticipate that the hostilities between Israel and Hezbollah will expand dramatically in the coming weeks and months. It's hard to gauge exactly the timeline. I think for many Israelis didn't expect that this war would already be approaching a year's length in time. And certainly, Israel had promised its residents in the north that they would be able to return to their homes in time for the school year. It's clear that that's not going to happen. But Israel is definitely running out of patience. They've run out of patience with the international community, which is trying to push for a ceasefire deal. That all those efforts have proven a failure. And I think that Israel is going to have to figure out how to conclude this war the hard way, because it doesn't look like any kind of a diplomatic arrangement is in sight.
Alex, before we let you go, any final thoughts?
Well, I think that all the red lines have been crossed. Israel is fighting a battle not only for its own existence, for its own legitimacy, for its own survival, but it's actually fighting a battle for the West. I mean, you alluded to this in your questions, and I do think that Israel is the forward base for all of Western civilization here, fighting against Islamic radicalism in the Islamic Republic of Iran. I think that the entire world is depending on an Israeli victory. It will be up to those other countries to decide how much they want to aid Israel in that battle. But if they're not, Israel has always said that they're willing to defend themselves by themselves.
All right, Alex, as always, we do appreciate you taking the time to join us here on Live Now from Fox.
Thank you for having me.
And we continue to follow all of the developments